Hello there, I'm Todd Weller. Thank you for joining today's Lunch and Learn served by the FileMaker team here at Cross IT. Before we dig in, remember that you have a chance to win lunch on us if you leave a comment or ask a question during the live stream. Just make sure we have your email address so we can contact you. Well, it is now the middle of May, which means the summer season is almost officially here. Inspired by thoughts of cookouts and eating grilled meat in the coming months, Todd is going to talk about the hamburger menu, that is. We'll look at some standard implementations in FileMaker layout design of this common design pattern, and we'll also look at some tips and tricks along the way. We have a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we are celebrating the hamburger today as part of this Lunch and Learn. Just a couple fun facts about the hamburger is that May 28th, which often aligns with Memorial Day, about every 6 or 7 years I guess it is National Hamburger Day. And also Americans consume approximately 50 billion hamburgers per year. So it works out to like 2.3 or 2.4 hamburgers per week per person, which is a pretty staggering amount. Now for the hamburger menu, that was created by Norm Cox in 1981 and first appeared in the graphical user interface of the Xerox Star. Unfortunately, it didn't stick around. Fell out of popularity and didn't come back into regular use until the introduction of the smartphones and their accompanying apps in the mid-2000s. So that is the hamburger menu that we all know and love. So what are our options then? So the common implementations that we have used here with Cross are typically, it's either as a standalone popover button. It's also as a hidden popover button, which is more just about a design choice and the way we want it to appear on the screen. The actual menu itself is the same. And one that we've just started using here recently is actually opening it in a card window, and we're going to talk about the differences and why you may want to consider that moving forward in your own design. All right, so we're back in my roller coaster app because we're talking about summer things. And summer is also roller coaster season in my mind. So we're going to start there. So we've got a couple test layouts here already set up. And you'll see that we've got our hamburger button already added. You click on it and the menu appears. It's a very straightforward thing. Drop into a layout mode here. And what you see here as you click and double click, you get the popover appears. You can get over here and do your setup. You can give it a name. You can show or hide the title bar. Usually when you're in a menu, it's kind of self-explanatory as to what it is, so you typically leave that hidden. And then you can decide what objects you're going to put on the title in that popover. And with the button bar object that we have access to, it's kind of naturally, it's just a natural fit for use in menus like this. So again, very straightforward example. So let's go ahead and get back into browse mode. Don't need to save any changes. And then let's go ahead and again, same layout, or almost the same layout, except this time I've just for variety, I've moved the popover over here. And what I've done is that. Okay, so the popover still appears, but it appears in the upper corner of the layout, a little bit more with what we're familiar with some of the menus. But you'll notice we've got this little weird, diamond carrot shape there on the side. So what is that all about? All right, so let's go ahead and drop into layout mode and we can explore this implementation of it. And this is what I call like that hidden button technique, where the actual button is just a button with a very simple single script step, which is just to go to the object, which I've named PO_menu for popover. And then I know that that is the menu. And so when this button is pressed, you'll see that there is a popover button here. If we check out the hide object when, it is always hidden, so it's never going to appear, hence why we call this the hidden button technique. And as we open up that popover, then the popover appears. And even though the button is hidden because I'm going to it by object name, it's still going to open on my layout, which you can see right here. There it is as PO_menu. Now there's a couple things that you're able to do with this to make it a little bit more in line with what you would expect to see, because you can see there's still a little bit of a border. You know, if I try to move this button over just 1 pixel from where it's currently situated, the popover automatically flips over to the other side, and that's not the behavior that we want because of what, you know, the pattern that we're trying to copy. So if we go in here to our design, go ahead and select the popover itself. Let me get back to the right menu. One of the things that we are able to control is the outer shadow. And so we can take advantage of that if we go into here to our details. If I go ahead and select a color for that shadow, you can see it's given, you know, a little bit of a blur, but we'll go ahead and get rid of that because that's part of the default, you know, theme. Probably don't need quite that much blur, but what I can do is I increase the spread. It actually creates, and we're just going to go ahead and get rid of the blur completely. And then now as I increase, you see we've filled in the gap, but it's still not, you know, so I can, if I want to increase it the whole way up so that it, you know, completely takes that diamond shape off, I can do that. But at least at this point, you know, I've got my border is actually extending beyond the limits of my layout. So now if I go ahead and save my layout, go back into browse mode, and now when I click on my button, I'm seeing, you know, other than this little thing in the corner, pretty much, you know, seeing exactly what I would expect to see, you know, from my menu with, I got a little bit of a border. And then of course, then you can, you know, play around with some of the other formatting and things like that for, you know, the actual buttons that are in your menu. So that's the one that we've probably used the most often. Typically we're placing, you know, our popovers either in the upper left or upper right corners. And so things are working out pretty well. But another technique that we have just started using, and again, I just moved the popover button over to a different spot on the layout just so you can see that, is that we're using, it's actually in a card window now, and it's not actually in a popover to open this hamburger menu. And, you know, we're still able to go through and select the different, you know, choices or the different modules maybe that might be in this layout or in this solution. But the only thing that's a little bit different, somewhat a little counterintuitive for the way people are used to having those hamburger or popover menus work, is that as you go in here and click on outside of the menu, it doesn't disappear. And the reason why is it's in a card window. You don't have any control over you know, when you're outside, especially when you're working in FileMaker Pro Desktop. So you actually have to build in a close menu button, which you don't normally have to do. And so I can just click that, and now, you know, I'm back and able to navigate. So those are a very quick overview of what we've got going on here with our menus. But what you'll see is, let's go ahead and start using it now. I think because that'll be a better way to kind of demonstrate, you know, why you would pick, you know, one method over the other. So I've already gone ahead and created some additional layouts, and, you know, there's no data or anything like that. So I actually need to edit there. All right, and so we are going to quickly go ahead and add these in. So we want to go to the amusement parks. Oops. Just bear with me here as we get the rest of these set up. Now, obviously, I could have scripts written that I'm calling here. Passing parameters and doing things other than just going to layouts. But that's the the easiest thing to go ahead and set up here from a time standpoint. So we're just going to go ahead and do that for our example. But anything that you need to do as far as running a script from a button on a layout that would make sense to be in a menu, you can go ahead and add here. All right, so that saves what I just changed, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy both the actual visible button and our hidden button, because once you have it set up, it's very easy to go ahead, and if we select browse and I come over here and say, okay, let's take a look at the amusement parks, which again is empty. So we'll just drop into layout mode. Go ahead and add that in. And so, except why did it do that? I got my button a little bit too close. It's going to be easier to just do this. So that needs to be 343. Oops. All right. Okay, there we go. That's what we were expecting to see happen. And so, go back to the roller coasters, select the flat rides. Again, we need to add the button. And as you can see, there's a little bit of work that needs to happen, to make sure that things are lined up, because you don't want the the menu button to be hopping around as you're doing your navigation and stuff. But you can see what we're accomplishing here is that once I've got my hamburger menu set up, I can go ahead and copy that element from layout to layout. Now, what happens if I need to change the action of one of the buttons, where maybe I don't want it to just go to the roller coaster layout? I want it to go to the roller coaster layout, perform a find to show those active roller coasters, or some other subset of those records, or do something else. Then I need to go back and change the action that is assigned to all of those buttons on each of those layouts. And so again, depending on how large your solution is, that can be a little cumbersome. And so that's where we started playing around with this idea of, well, what if we open up our hamburger menu in a card instead of going to the actual pop over menu itself. And so let's go ahead and get to that layout here. All right, now just a couple things. Oops, get to the right. There we go. There's our card window. So this one here, the first one, we were using a go to object script step, so that's all we needed to do. But now we're doing a little bit more. So let's go ahead and get into the scripts workspace so we can take a look at that script, which is very simple and straightforward, which is just open hamburger menu. And so just setting a couple variables here. which is just the hamburger top, hamburger left, based on the position of the current or parent window. And then we're just using our new window style here, where we want to make sure that it is a card. Selecting the name, not worrying about changing the size because we set that in the way that we've actually set up our layout. And then we just use those positions. Now, obviously, I could go ahead and include those values right in here, but I like doing it in these variables just because I find it's a little bit easier, from a standpoint of troubleshooting. As I'm like going through the script and script debugger, I can see exactly what is going to happen. And so we've got the top, and we've also got our left value here, which is the window width minus 300. So why did I do that? All right, well, let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that step and disable it so I have the original left over. But the first time I started, kind of contemplating this idea, I was like, well, I know that if I do this, that'll get me the position of my parent window. And then I know that because I want this pop-up or this hamburger menu to appear on the right-hand side, I need to know how wide my window is. All right. And whoops, I better spell it correctly or it's going to get grumpy. And then I know what the approximate width of my window is, so I probably want to come back a little bit because I'm specifying the left position of that card window. So I go ahead and put that in there. So we've got this calculation now where we're just going to, if I figure out, okay, we're going from here to here, here to here on our right edge, and then coming back so far to set our left edge. So I'm going to go ahead and put this over here, and it dropped it right in as expected. Which is a good thing. So again, that much is not really required. So we can just, because it's smart enough to know what the extents are of the window that we're in, we can just go ahead and get the width minus the 300 we don't actually have to worry about. So there's no point in adding extra code that you don't need. And so that gets us to the window. All right. So let's go ahead and do the same thing as we did before. I'm going to go ahead and grab that button. And then now, let me just get to my, we'll go ahead and take these off because we don't need that method. And we can just quickly add those buttons to our layout here. Okay, so let's go back into browse mode. Oh, I just realized, glad I caught this. We need to go ahead and add those same script steps to our card navigation menu. All right, so that one's already set up to close, but we need to go ahead and add this. So there's our amusement parks. So we get back to our roller coaster layout here. buttons. Dining options now. And then last but not least, our nearby hotels. All right, so we'll save that. Now we can go back to our starting point here. And so now, click on that. I get this menu and say, okay, well, let's check out. And I forgot a step. And now I am stuck. All right. So hopefully you all saw what I did there, because I need to dismiss this window. And I did not do that. So now I've got myself stuck in a... So unfortunately, I'm going to have to force quit FileMaker. And then reopen. All right. So, sorry about this, folks. Everything tested, but obviously forgot a step. So let's get to our card navigation. All right, so we need to go ahead and convert this to a script now. And just for sake of time, since we're already running out of time, fix my goof. So I don't know how many of you have used this very handy feature that FileMaker has given us. If you've got a single script step assigned to a button, you can quickly convert it to a script and then do other things to it. Oops, try that. All right, so let's see if that fixes my boo-boo here. Go to browse mode, open our window. And now when I select the amusement parks, okay, now it's working to take me where I expected to go as I click through the different buttons. Oops, still got on the dining options, nearby hotels. All right, so corrected my error, and so now that part is working as expected. But want to take a look at a quick example as to, okay, why would you want to choose this method where you've had to do a little bit more scripting and stuff, versus just updating and using a popover to have your hamburger button. So let's go ahead and drop back into layout mode, and just so that we have a different destination, I'm going to take this old layout here and just put a different name on it, and we're going to call it there's local attractions, because that might be something that you want to track when you're going around visiting all these different amusement parks and riding roller coasters. There may be other fun things to do in the area that you want to go ahead and keep track of. So we want to go ahead and add that in. Okay. So we've got that layout saved. Okay, so we've added this new module. Now, if I were using the hidden button technique, I would have to go to my popover I probably actually had to go to the popover itself, make it a little bit bigger. Have to go here, add another button. Attractions, do a single step. Pick that layout. And then probably do a little bit of resizing just to make sure that my segments, come back to being the same height as what they were before I made any changes. And we can shrink this back down a little bit. All right. So that didn't take a whole lot of time, right? So I can come in here and say, okay, there's my new option that's down here. But if I go ahead and say, okay, well, let's go from roller coasters to amusement parks, which the button is gone, but I've only made the change in that one spot. It hasn't been made everywhere where I'm using this hamburger navigation menu to get around my file, to do all of those things. So now I'm left going to each of those popovers and making that same change. So that can be a lot of effort for that. And so that's where this method is a little bit better if we open it in the card window. So let's again drop back into layout mode, go to the navigation menu. So now all I have to do is just go ahead and make this a little bit smaller so I can get that. Go ahead here, I'm going to add a new button. And we'll just pick an icon, which is actions, single step. Go ahead and create a new one, which is close window. Go to layout and put in the ever important exit script step. Okay, go ahead and resize just to keep the buttons the same height. And then I can go ahead and resize my layout, save that, and now when I go back to my card window, okay, my new option is there. Of course, I don't have the button. And so there's the same layout. If I go to my nearby hotels, so I didn't have to go to every single one of my layouts and change my menu. I only had to go to that one layout to make an adjustment. So that's certainly probably the strongest argument for using this card window method rather than using just the standard popover, because of the fewer places. Obviously a little bit more in the setup, but you have a lot more flexibility after the fact as far as being able to edit. So that is our quick tour of using Hamburger button and a couple different methods for implementing your hamburger menu. So let's go ahead and see if we have any questions. All right, so one question that we had that came in, these actually kind of two questions that kind of go together is, the first one is, how do you decide which method to use? Honestly, a lot of it comes down to how much time do I have to develop? As you saw that, the card window method, it does take a little bit more time to set up. But if I have the time to set it up that way, I've started leaning towards using that method more and more. just because I like the flexibility that it gives me, for future Todd, when he has to go in and make changes. I don't have to remember, okay, where all do I need to make an edit to this card menu or this navigation hamburger menu in order to fully implement the change. I can just go to that one menu and make my change there. But if it's a quick fix, if it's an existing solution that already has kind of the more traditional methods for implementing the hamburger navigation menus, I would probably just make my changes that way. But then the other question that came in that kind of goes along with that is, which method do I prefer? And I would say probably the card window method, for all of the reasons that I had just explained, where I do like the flexibility. Like I said, the only thing that kind of is a bummer is that you do have to go up here and hit the close menu, where it's not as easy as a tap outside to dismiss that hamburger menu. You do have to have the user interact and definitely close it so you can get to where you need to go. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Can you pass parameters? Certainly you can. It doesn't matter which method that you're in. You can certainly, if you're running scripts rather than just doing simple layout navigation, you can certainly pass parameters using either of the methods. It's probably a little bit more involved if you are using this method, because obviously the context of this layout is going to be potentially different than the context of the layout that you're calling that navigation hamburger menu from. So like if I'm looking at the hotels, that's going to be one. If I come back here to my roller coasters, this is a different context for the roller coasters on my relationship graph. But when I open up my menu here, it's going to be the same context every time this particular menu opens. So you certainly have to be a little bit more deliberate about how you pass parameters. Like if you want something where someone has selected a particular roller coaster, and then like if we go up and select this roller coaster, but then you want to pass that information to run a report about what amusement park is it in, or how many times have I ridden this in the past. You would have to be able to collect that information in such a way that when the user has made the selection here and takes them back, that you still have that information at your fingertips. So if you're doing just pure navigation, this is a great easy way. If you're talking about passing parameters and things, it does require a little bit more thought. All right, so let's see, do we have any other questions that have come in? Alrighty, it does not look like we have any other questions. So let's go ahead and take a look at some upcoming schedule of events here. As soon as I get to my list of upcoming events. The first is that Hamburg, which is the FileMaker developer group, we are meeting again on the first Wednesday of June. That means our next meeting is now just a couple of weeks away. Will be on Wednesday, June 7th at 7 p.m. Currently, this meeting is an online only, so we hope you can make plans to join us remotely. For details and the RSVP, you can visit our website at crossit.com/fmberg. Our next Lunch and Learn takes place on Wednesday, June 21st. We are still in the planning stages, but you can be sure that Todd will talk about something. All right. Again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule here today to join us for this Lunch and Learn. If you liked what you saw and heard, please click the thumbs up and share this video. If you haven't subscribed, we humbly ask that you do so. You can also hit the bell there in your YouTube app of choice to be notified when we go live with new content. Some of the content that is presented as part of our Lunch and Learn sessions is the result of your questions. So if you have a suggestion for a future topic, or if a specific FileMaker problem has you stumped, please submit those topics and questions by emailing us at nutshell@crossit.com. And then your idea or question may be the featured topic of a future Lunch and Learn. From all of us at CrossIT, we are glad to have served you. Have a great day.